Okay. Premier League predictions. I've waited a while to do this. I was gonna do it a while ago, but didn't get around to it. But here are my predictions now. For every single team, I'm gonna pick their three most key players or their two key players and their manager. So I'm gonna start off with Leeds, who I have in 20th because they did really well in the championship, and their home form is going to be extremely pivotal. But the three players I have is Tanaka, because he was really good in the championship. Sean Longstaff, because I genuinely I could not think of anyone just looking at their team. Like I was really struggling for Leeds. And then Goodmanson, because maybe a fullback can replacing Junior Firpo. Like it's gonna be really tough, but Goodmanson's he can do something, I guess. In 19th, I have Burnley. I think a lot of people would agree on those two as the bottom two teams. With Burnley, they obviously conceded an extremely low amount of goals. I think it was like 16 to 20, somewhere in there. They've obviously lost their keeper, who was pretty valuable to them, James Trafford. But the three important players, the key players I have for them, is Kyle Walker, the new signing. Obviously, years of experience with Tottenham City in the Prem, winning titles. Hopefully, he doesn't completely fall off, and he can give them a chance, strengthen that defense. Marcus Edwards, who I believe came last January. I could be wrong though. I think Burnley are going to really struggle for goals. And I think he's going to be the only one able to create anything. They've obviously lost their top scorer. And they just... they've got Broya now, who I don't think had a single shot on target last season. Obviously, not been great since his injury or even since the Southampton loan. He was good on the Southampton loan in like 2021 or whenever it was. But I don't see the goals in this Burnley team. And then I also have Esteve, their centre-back, who I think he played 46 out of 46 games last season for Burnley. Obviously conceded like nothing. I think Esteve will be by far their key player. I'm surprised they kept him. If they can keep him suspension-free, injury-free for the whole season, they have a chance. I just cannot see where the goals are coming from though. In 18th, I may have a shock to people. I have Brentford. They've lost too many players. They've lost their manager, obviously Thomas Frank. Might lose Visser. Already lost them Burmo. New manager who's unproven. And I want another team to stay up, which I'll come to soon, but I think the three key players, who are again three players for Brentford, will be I think it's Nathan Collins, Coyote the right back, and Kelleher in goal. I think they need to be strong defensively, and they need to somehow get Damsgaard cooking. They need to somehow get Sharda to score some more goals, because he did come into his own a little bit last season. But losing Visser and Mbermo, if they lose Visser, which I'm assuming they will, and Mbermo, it's just too many goals that are missing now. So I think they have to be strong defensively, which is why they're my three key players. And if they survive, I think it'll be because of a good defense, not because of a good attack. In 17th, where are they? I have Sunderland. This may be because I want them to be in the Premier League and I see them as a Premier League team, but they've made a lot of signings, and unfortunately for them, a lot of them are going to go to AFCON halfway through the season, which really sucks for them. But I can't have 3 going up, 3 going down every season. So I think Sunderland 17th, their home form, Stadium of Light, they've got to do something this season. I really like the 3 players I'm about to mention now. Xhaka, incredible signing. Genuinely no idea why he's gone there or how they've got him. Adingra from Brighton, again, feel like Adingra is higher level than that caliber of level right now, like a championship coming up. I thought he was decent at Brighton. And then also Diarra, obviously. I think their most expensive signing in the window so far. Obviously, Sunderland probably still going to buy more players because they have the money. But Diarra, good last season. Cost them 30 mil, I think. Sunderland's midfield is going to be extremely, extremely key for them this season. I think having Diarra and Xhaka in there, although it's new, I think they'll work really, really well together. In 16th, I'm keeping West Ham there, which they have some really good players, like Bowen. He's one of the key players, in my opinion. Paqueta, and also Hermansen, who they've just signed. I think Hermansen is a very, very good keeper. I think he was really good at Leicester, even though they obviously, they kind of stunk last season. I'm not gonna lie. But Hermansen, I've liked him from his time with like Maresca in the Championship. I think Hermansen is a high quality keeper, and he will make West Ham more stable. Wolves 15th. I think John Arias, if he can hit the ground running, he's one of the key players in my opinion. He's the first one. I think he had a really, really good Club World Cup. I think they needed to replace Cunha. And I feel like they have him and Arias. I feel like Arias and Strand Larsen together, who is another key player in my opinion, I think those two have enough goals between them to make Wolves escape the relegation fight halfway through the season. I think for quite a while they'll be like in and around at like 4 to 5 points clear, and then around the 20th, 21st game, I think they'll just be completely clear because of the third person I have and the first manager of the video, Vitor Pereira, the Wolves manager. I think he was really, really good last season, especially when they lost Cunha through suspension, I think it was, for like a couple of games. I think the Wolves played much more as a team, and I feel like they benefited a lot more from that, gaining almost maximum points from the games played without Cunha for like a little section of last season. And I think Wolves are just a really, really stable team with Vitor Pereira. In 14th, Bournemouth. I think they will drop off from last season, where I think they came 9th, 10th, mid-table, a bit higher than mid-table, pushing Europe actually towards the end of the season. I think Iraola is extremely key for them, especially this season when they've lost all 4 back 4 defenders in Max Aarons, I believe. Obviously, Zabani just gone PSG, Huijsen to Real Madrid, and Kirkes to Liverpool. I think they need a buy, but I think Bournemouth and Iraola will find the right profile for Bournemouth. I don't think they'll be anywhere near the relegation. I think Iraola's way too good of a manager to be able to be scrapped down there. I think they could honestly come higher. I've been quite conservative with 14th, but they've lost 3 of like crucial like defenders. But I think they will score enough. I really like Evan Nilsson. He's not one of the players I have. I have Kluivert as a key player because he did score a lot of pens last season, but I'm pretty certain he was their top scorer. But I do see them scoring a lot of goals and just outscoring opposition. And the third player I have as key player is Petrovic, because as a Chelsea fan, I wanted him to stay, obviously, and he is just a really, really good keeper, especially like last season out on loan at Strasbourg. He was one of the best in Europe, I'd say. And Bournemouth getting him and replacing Kepa, who I would say is an upgrade on Kepa, is pretty important for them. I think he will save them in a lot of games. In 13th, Nottingham Forest. I think they will have a drop off from last season. I think quite a few people are expecting them to drop off. They've obviously now kept Morgan Gibbs-White, which is completely huge for them. Whether how legal everything was is a pretty interesting situation. But they have kept him, and that's the main thing for Nottingham. The other two key players I have is Matt Sells and Milenkovic. I think they'll struggle way more for goals this season. Obviously, Chris Wood getting a year older, I assume slowly going to slow down. However, it's Chris Wood and a bit of a backman. Alenka obviously left. I think Hudson-Odoi will need to have a better season because I really like him in the Nottingham team. I do like their new signing in Doi, but I don't think it's enough for them to warrant keeping the same position. 12th, I think the most obvious pick of them all, Crystal Palace. Name me a season they haven't come 12th. Challenge impossible. I don't think it's possible for Palace not to come 12th. Obviously winning the FA Cup last season. I think they're in the Conference League this season. I think they have to go through qualifiers. And whether the verdict's still out or not, as of this time, I don't know whether Nottingham get Conference League or Europa League or Crystal Palace get Conference League or Europa League. I think Crystal Palace will be in Conference League there. And playing in Europe can take a toll on teams, as we've seen in the past, with like Newcastle dropping, Aston Villa. It takes a toll on players it takes a toll on teams with smaller squads. However, I think Glasner, who's a key person in my opinion, I think he is an extremely good manager, and I think he'll be able to cope with that. I think he'll do fine. Mateta for the goals, and I would have like Mark Gahey or Eze, but I'm really, really uncertain whether they're gonna stay because I think Liverpool want Gahey, Tottenham, Arsenal want Eze. I don't think both of them stay. I think they both leave. So I have Mateta, and then I also have Adam Wharton, who I think is probably one of the best midfielders in the league. Definitely one of the best sixers. I really, really, really rate Adam Wharton. 11th, I've seen a few people really rate Fulham, and I can understand why, but they haven't been that active in the window. But they have kept a lot of their team, such as Anthony Robinson, who I have. Smith Rowe obviously came in last season. He's another one. And then also Raul Jimenez. Because I don't see enough people rate Raul Jimenez. Because he's a tall striker. I believe he's like 6'2", 6'3". And he's just like... His link-up play is very, very underrated in my opinion. I think he'll just score a goal. Like just from nothing. I think he's a really, really, really good striker for when he was at Wolves and now when he's at Fulham. I think he's one of the most underrated players in the Prem currently. In 10th, I have Brighton. 10th. This is before transfer window ends. Obviously, there's still like a month to go. Or not a month. There's, as of recording, there's 17 days. Obviously they still have Belieber, who they need to keep. He is probably their best player currently, I would say, definitely most important. Who I obviously have Belieber right now. Obviously if he moves, that won't be the case. I have Matoma, and then I have Mats Wiefer, who's currently been playing right back, and I think that could elevate Brighton higher than the likes of like Tottenham, for example, higher than like Aston Villa, United. Brighton have a sneaky chance of Europe. I think they could do it. I think a tactical flexibility with Matt Swifer as a right back could prove to be the difference because I really like him in that team. Obviously, Belieber as well. Maybe Wifer goes into midfield with them and have like a double pivot of them. I think that would just suit them really well. And Herzl is young manager. He's improving every single season, obviously, being that young. I think he's really unpredictable when he came in. And Brighton usually start the season well, I'd say. I feel like they're always first after game week 1, which is just weird. Uh, yeah, I think Matoma, if he stays injury free, is their key forward. I think Minte could have a good year, but Matoma is just better. I I I think that's where the goals come from, is Matoma, and the assist from Matoma. In ninth, who I have very high, is Everton. I think under Moyes, who is the first key person, I think Moyes is an exceptional manager who made West Ham a much better team, who is now making Everton a much, much better team. I think they're defensively incredible with Tarkowski, O'Brien, Mikolenko, Branthwaite. I think they have a really, really solid foundation, and I think he's just a really, really good manager. I think now getting the likes of Grealish, who I do have, who I've just put in, obviously new signing from yesterday. And then I also have Tarkowski because I needed someone from their backline. But Grealish and Ndiaye, I feel like will both play 10 and like the left wing, left mid in their formation. But I think Grealish will win a lot of fouls, and he'll be able to make something out of nothing in that Everton team, same as Ndiaye though. But I feel like Grealish winning that many fouls with the size of Everton, I feel like that's going to lead to a lot of goals. With their obviously massive defenders. In 8th, I have Spurs, who are lovely, sitting in 8th already for me. I think new signing, loanee signing, I believe, Palhinha. I think he needs to help defensively if the likes of Porro and Udogie or Jed Spence get forward a lot, which I feel like they may have the license to again, but obviously not nearly as much as the Postecoglou line that we've all come to enjoy. I think there'll be a lot more. I think there'll be a lot better defensively than last season with Thomas Frank, although he's not a defensive manager, but I think he's just not going to play an extremely high line, and Porro and Udogie aren't terrible at defending, so having them deeper isn't a bad thing, and I think they'll still be able to get high, wide, but I think Van de Ven is a very, very key player for them. It was either him or Romero for me as the centre-back. But I have Thomas Frank, Van de Ven, and Palhinha. I think Palhinha needs to be in front of that defence, sweeping everything up. 7th, I have Villa. I think Unai Emery, key person. I think he's going to be able to manage the squad really well. They haven't been able to spend. However, they have got a new forward. I think he's good backup to Ollie Watkins, who is going to need to play every single game, in my opinion. I don't think they can come top 7 without Watkins. Obviously, I have Watkins, Emery, and Rodgers. Rodgers is an obvious one as well. I think he's injured for the start of the season. Got like a small preseason injury. But obviously, Watkins and Rodgers partnership, they need to have big seasons if they want Villa to be good. I do like the likes of like Yuri Tillemans, obviously like Konza at the back. I don't know if they're keeping Emi Martinez, but they've a few like important players. But I think Rodgers and Watkins is the only way they score, like especially important goals. 6th. I'm questioning whether I change it right now. In my predictions, I have United 6th. But I'm going to change it to Newcastle 6th. I think 3 crucial people as Bruno Guimaraes, Tonali, Eddie Howe. I think the midfield is really, really important for Newcastle. Obviously, one of the best midfields in the league. Bruno Guimaraes, he's an exceptional footballer. I think those two in the midfield really elevates Newcastle. And I think Eddie Howe obviously hasn't gotten all the players he's wanted in the window, but I think he'll make them defensively strong again like they were a few seasons ago. With Botman coming back. They bought Ramsdale. Don't know if he's going to play or whether Nick Pope will play. But there's backup there anyway. I think obviously they may lose Isaac. They may not. If they keep Isaac, I'd put them 5th, but I don't think they're going to keep him. Obviously, just bought an Alanga, but is he going to be really good for Newcastle? Because you're dropping your most assists from last season, Jacob Murphy. Anthony Gordon didn't hit the ground running last season, but it was a good season before. I think there's too many question marks about Newcastle to put them in the top 5. All right. In 5th, I'm not putting Man United in the top 4. They can stay 5th, which is, I think, their highest that they can go. I think the gap between 4th and 5th this season will be the biggest we've seen in a very long time. I think this could be a 15-point range between 4th and 5th. I think the top 4 is just way too far beyond the rest of the Premier League now. I have an obvious one in Bruno Fernandes. He needs to be their best player. Otherwise, they will just struggle. He needs to create chances. He needs to score himself. He needs to score important goals. He needs to dictate the play. He needs to do everything in that United team if they want to have a good season. I also have a new signing in Mbeumo. I don't not like the signing of Sesko and Cunha, but I'm not like a huge fan compared to other people. I think Sesko scored less than 15 league goals in the Bundesliga, although he was really good. I think it's for Salzburg a few years back. Obviously, he's been good for Leipzig, but I think it's a lot of money, and he just seems like a similar kind of signing to what Rasmus Højlund was and what they're expecting. I think the pressure will get to him being the striker for Man United. I don't think he'll have a bad season, but I don't think it's going to be nearly as good as what United need. I think Cunha, depends what his attitude's going to be like, in my opinion. If he has a really good attitude going for it, going to be a really big team player, then I think he could have a good season and be really important for them. And then the final player I have is an interesting one, because I don't really believe it myself when I say it, but I have Patrick Dorgu. I don't really rate that highly, but I think if United do well, they need to have really good wing backs in a wing back system, I would call it. I think Dorgu has to have a good season if United come 5th. In 4th, I have Arsenal. I think, although a lot of people have said all they need is a striker, and they've got their striker, I think a key thing in here is it's his first season. Talking about Gyökeres, obviously, it's his first season in the Prem. He scored almost all of his goals against bottom 10 teams. He rarely scored against the big teams. A lot of his goals were penalties, which that's quite a few players now that just score a lot of their goals as penalties. But I think he'll do good. I think he'll get minimum 10, maximum 23. He'll probably get around 15, 16 league goals, in my opinion. I think it will just be Arsenal's. I think it would just be Arsenal's defense that will make them good. I think Gabriel, when he plays every game, will be, again, one of the more key players. I have him. I also have Saka, obviously. He's the creator in that team. Martin Odegaard doesn't create enough, in my opinion. I think he could get benched a lot more this season for the likes of Wanyeri, who can create a lot more, in my opinion. I think Saka is just by far like their key player. I think he's the one that creates everything. Corners, obviously, Corner FC. I don't think Arsenal progressed, even with the likes of Zubimendi, Gyökeres, Madueke. I don't think they've progressed enough compared to the other 3 teams that have ahead of them. The final player I have for Arsenal is Jurrien Timber, who I think should play. I actually really like Jurrien Timber. And again, it's another Arsenal defender. I think the defenders are going to have a good season just because of the way Arteta plays. I think Arteta should be a little bit more risky if he wants to win the league title, which he struggled in the last 3 years, obviously, coming second, back to back. But I think he can't rely on the defense too much. But I think Jurrien Timber will have a good season because of how Arteta plays. But they're going to be 4th because of that, if that makes sense. In 3rd, I have Liverpool. And I know, people may disagree with that because they've just won the league and they've now improved in multiple positions after winning the league. but I still don't think they've improved at the level of the other two teams still left. I think Van Dijk, obviously a key player, but he could fall off at any moment. I think McAllister is another key player who I think the more he plays for Liverpool, the more important he becomes. I think when he first came to Liverpool, the first few games, he was a little bit shaky in my opinion. Made a few rash decisions, a few too many mistakes for my liking. But every single game I watch him, he just gets better and better and way more important for Liverpool. I think he's becoming more and more underrated the more he plays. The final one is obviously Mohamed Salah. But I think with AFCON, depends how far Egypt go, obviously. I think Salah needs to have a really, really good opening of the season and then end the season really strong, which I don't think he's really done before, I want to say. He's really, in my opinion, Salah's really, really good at the start of the seasons. But then when it gets past Christmas, he's just there. He's along for the ride. There's obviously some seasons of exceptions, but like, I see Van Dijk and McAllister being more influential this season. Although I do think Salah will score a lot of goals again this season. In second, I have Man City. Definitely nothing to do with the Chelsea kit in the background. Nothing to do with it. City, obviously, a big fall off last season. They were outside the top four for a while, losing a lot of games. Champions League is included in that as well. I think Haaland, obviously a key player. He needs to score a lot. I think Marmoush is a key player in my opinion. I really, really like the signing of Marmoush last season. I think he's a really, really good footballer and makes Haaland not be the sole burden to score goals. However, saying that, I don't think City will score enough goals outside of those two. That you've maybe got Reinders. That's really it from what I see. I don't think Doku nearly scores enough. I don't think Foden will come back to what he was, scoring a lot, outperforming XG massively. I think the burden will be too heavily relied upon Marmoush and Haaland for City to be winning the league. So I have Marmoush, Haaland as two key players, and I also have Gvardiol. Because I think if City were to be at the very, very top, they need to be defensively good. I think if City want to be as good as they want to be, Gvardiol needs to cover really, really well for Ait-Nouri, who's going to be very high and out of position a lot, I'm going to say. First, I obviously have Chelsea. I think if there's a year to do it, it's this year, with City having a rebuild in their year. Liverpool signing a lot of players. Arsenal always falling short, and just no other team challenging, in my opinion. I think this is the year Chelsea do it. Obviously, come 12th a few years ago in our rebuild, and then 6th, and then 4th. We're rapidly improving every single year. And with our key players, in my opinion, of Palmer, Caicedo, and Enzo, who is more of a controversial one, I would say, among the Chelsea fan base. But I think the amount of GA he gets is underrated in the Chelsea team, and I think Chelsea have so many different ways to score now outside of Palmer. I think it's hard to say Chelsea aren't one of the favourites for the Prem. I think we score with João Pedro, Liam Delap off the bench. Then you've got Neto, who chips in with really important goals. Like if you look at all the goals they've scored and the assists, they're always at like a crucial time. You've obviously got Esteval coming in, scored in his debut, won a penalty in his second game, pre-season, but you get it. Obviously, if Enzo as a box crasher, Palmer, obviously, that's 5 to 6 players that chip in with the goals. You've got Cucurella, who always arrives at the back post, getting inside the box. Reece James from set piece. I think there's just too many goals. Even with Robert Sanchez and a shaky back line, I think Hato's good enough to replace Cucurella. Hato will play from game weeks like 4 onwards, I'd say, after he gets a feel for Chelsea. The right centre-back and goalie are the issues. But I think I think Robert Sanchez is a good enough shot stopper, and I think our midfield is just that good now, and the cover is that good. The squad depth for Chelsea is that good. I think it's definitely a good enough team to win the league, and I think if there's a year to do it, it's this year. All right, I'm gonna do my player of the season, young player of the season, and golden boot because they're kind of important, and I just want to predict those so I can say I'm right at the end of the season when all three are correct. I have Erling Haaland as golden boot. I think with the burden being on him and Marmoush, I think Haaland will just outscore every single striker. I can see him getting another 30 goals a season, which he hasn't done for 2 years now. But I think he's definitely a good enough player to do that. Player of the season, because I have Chelsea first, I'm going to say Cole Palmer as player of the season. I think, although the whole burden's not going to be on him anymore to score and assist, because of how many players we have now that can do that, I think he's just using the eye test, you can see how good he is and how important he was even when he went on like the 17 game drought without scoring. I think you can just see how good he is. The best 10 in the league, I'd say. Young player of the season, I was going to put Estevao, but I don't think he will play enough, so I'm going to say Wanyeri for Arsenal, because I think, like I said before, he's going to play ahead of Erdogan in some games, and I think he'll just get the minutes, because he's obviously signed the new contract wanting more minutes, and I think he'll get them, and I think he'll have a good season and get young player of the season. But that's all my predictions. Obviously, at the end of the season, we're going to see how wrong I am, because let's be real, I'm not going to be right with many of these because that's not how the Premier League works. It's not very easy to predict. But yeah,